Hello and welcome to Anything Goes. And I don't know why I've got Bigfoot Cafe banner in the background. It's probably because
there we are.
Hello and welcome to Anything Goes. How you doing, Jason?
Can't complain so far.
No, all good, all good. I fell asleep actually before the show.
Well, it is stupidly late where you are. So I think it's
midnight. I mean, I'm kind of used to it, but I just feel like I said, I've had a really long week. And then I thought about it and I thought, well, actually, it's the same length as everyone else's week. Because we say that, don't we? But there's still the same amount of days and hours, but somehow...
It's the mileage. It's not the years. That's what I've always felt. It's the mileage, not the years. Sort of. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, everyone's got the same week, but not everyone's got the same week. So...
Exactly. I've had a weird week. I'm actually looking for a new job.
Really?
My care work is coming to an end in 2 weeks because of health changes and things like that with my client. And really, I can't really do any more where I'm at. So kind of wondering what am I going to do? Do I do something different? I've been lucky that all the jobs I've got, I've kind of always fallen into. And I can't remember the last time I've had a proper interview or actually properly applied for a job, because they always seem to flow naturally one into the other. So a little bit of a new thing for me to now be thinking about application forms and applying for jobs. I don't know, it's a weird place to be, isn't it? But I want to do something different. I think I want to study as well. So I don't know, I've got to kind of try and do something different, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, you know what? I mean, that's part of that's one of the fun things is we have opportunities. We can either look at these changes in our lives as negative, or we can see them as opportunities to do something new, to better ourselves, to move ourselves forward, to try something we haven't tried before. And I just see, I mean, that's the only I figure you're in the same spot either way, right? The best opportunity, the problem is a lot of people, they look at this sort of positive mindset, and which does not come naturally to me, let me assure you. But this whole idea of positive mindset, they're like, well, how can you have a positive mindset when XYZ is going on? Well, the truth of the matter is XYZ is going to go on whether you like it or not. That's irrelevant. What matters is whether or not, the thing is your mindset through that thing will determine what you get out of it. Because if you're just going to be negative, then you're not going to see opportunities that can arise. You're not going to seize, and you're not going to take a hold of those things and make the most of them. If you have a positive outlook, you'll get through it. The question is, it's not really the situation that changes, but what you're primed to do. Are you going to sit there and be negative and allow it to destroy you? Or are you going to be positive and see the opportunity? The opportunity is go do new things, right?
Definitely.
Something or it's an opportunity. So let's, seizing that opportunity, I think is very valid. It's the best way to look at it.
I think, like you say, a lot of people look at things as being problems when actually things are just obstacles or challenges, adventures, rather than being
exactly.
No, this is a problem. This is actually something new, and that's what I'm sad in one sense, because I've spent so long there, but in another sense, it's quite exciting thinking that I could just go and do something else. But it's kind of like, what do I do? So I'm going to be thinking about that over the next couple of weeks, and I would like to study, but I never was really good at study when I was younger. When I was at school, I left school and I did very little college. And
youth is wasted on the young.
I just got into work very early, and never really enjoyed studying, to be honest. Never really had fun at school. Studying's not my... I wanted to do music and art and those creative things, but actually all the other stuff was a little bit boring. So I don't know. Some people are like that. People are more practical. Some are more theoretical. It's just one of those things. Maybe when you're ready for it, you do it.
Well, I think you have to see a reason for it. I think the problem is everyone has a different personality, and and I think the problem is we try and put everyone in the same box, right? It's like you're going to study this in material in this way, or you've done it wrong. Why? Everyone's going to have different skill sets. We need people with different skill sets, and they're going to have different interests. And of course, as someone gets older, there's no reason why you can't go back and learn something new, right? If you've learned the skill that you needed and you've got your career going, you want to go back and get a little more education because now you're ready for it. Great. But we seem to have this idea that there's only one way to have a career or to educate yourself, and I think that's inherently flawed.
Yeah, I also think that we don't do enough social skills when we're younger, practical skills. We focus on subjects that can be completely irrelevant at that age, whereas there's more things we could learn. Do you have Steiner schools over there?
Have what?
Steiner schools.
I don't know what a Steiner school is.
So
Describe
Steiner school, I think it was called John Steiner, and they're more work on teaching kids, about growing food, cooking. Let me look it up because I'm surprised you don't. Well, it could just be in English, but I don't think it is.
Well, I do that. We have a lot of different schools that do different things. We just may not call them Steiner schools. Like we have STEM schools, which are focused on science and technology and math. But then we do have these other schools that do like to focus more on practical things. We've got magnet schools for a lot of different things. I think we should have multiple tracks in school where it's like, look, if you're not into math, if these are like, we should be able to do aptitude tests where it's like, look, this is not what your aptitude is, right? Like everyone should choose, but they're like, look, your aptitudes are over here. If you enjoy doing this, then yeah, maybe you should learn how to be a welder or a pipe fitter or a mechanic. Or I'm the son of a mechanic. There's no shame in that at all. I think we need more mechanics. I think the problem is we're trying to create an economy where people don't actually have to work. And that's a problem because what we do need? Farmers. We do need? Pipe fitters, plumbers, mechanics. We need people who can weld. We need people who can actually do things. Because having all the technology in the world doesn't mean anything if you ain't got power. I can assure you of that. So, we need to be able to teach people how to, go and grow food. Like, you don't have that right now. We're running out of people.
Kind of Steiner system is based on, engaging head, heart, hands, thinking, feeling, doing, to nurture the kids rather than put these subjects on us that are, without life skills, you're not going to do very well, even with a good education. I think that intelligence and common sense are completely two separate things.
Oh, absolutely.
You can be so clever and not know how to change a plug, but you can create software and stuff. So, I think we need more nurturing, more getting into what you have a tendency to be good at. I think, like you say, focus on what you're good at and not what you're not good at. Not everybody can. I always struggled with, I call it maths. You call it math over there. We call it maths here. Don't know why.
Well, it's because you're weird, but it's fine.
I forgot about that. Yeah, and I could never. I really struggled with math. I mean, I can do basic maths, obviously. When it gets to more complicated stuff, and just never had the capacity to remember it. And 20 minutes later, forget how it works.
Well, I think the average person does not need math above really algebra and geometry. Like,
why do we even need algebra? Where am I going to use algebra?
Well, algebra, there is some, again, I haven't used it since I left school, but there is aspects of algebra that I think make up for critical critical thinking, problem solving. There we go. That I think is valuable, but really above algebra and geometry, because again, geometry is important. You can there's some real value there, no matter who you are. But beyond that, I mean, most people are never going to use it. The people who need stuff above algebra are people who are going to be doing something with maths, like engineers and doctors, things like that, like people who would actually need it. And so that's what I'm saying. Is we need to focus on. We should have classes that actually teach you practical skills and put you in they can lead you to real jobs, so that you can figure out what it is you want to do. Not everyone should go to college. College isn't meant for everyone, and college isn't useful for everyone. Again, if you're happiest as a welder and you're good at it, go. We need welders. The problem is it's the value, right? We don't place value in people who actually build things, because our society thinks at some point, okay, this is about to be really cynical and it's anything goes, so I'm going to say it. I think the big problem is the elite of our society thinks it's always going to be wealthy, and they can just make everyone wealthy, and just says it's okay as long as the slaves don't live in our country. We're perfectly okay shipping jobs overseas to China to have actual slave labor produce our materials and then ship it back to us instead of having the job here. Because they think, well, we're beyond that. It's the arrogance of the other thing. Well, I'm beyond having to do that. We're perfectly okay with using slaves in China. We're perfectly okay with child labor digging up bauxite so we can have lithium batteries for our eco-friendly cars. It is obscene that we are far happier shipping our farming and our industrial jobs overseas to people where there's essentially, even if you are being paid, you're being underpaid. Their health and safety regulations are abysmal, and we're happy to do it. And we're like, oh, look at how good we are. We've done all these things. Well, you've made half the country poorer, and you're only the only reason we're getting things at the prices we are is because we're exchanging it with countries that don't have the same degree of regulations. We're not the ones polluting the ocean. It's China and India. That's where a lot of this pollution is coming from, because they're out there. They're like, yep, let's just throw our sewage into open lines. Let's just dump all of our plastics. We're supposed to be sending stuff over there to be recycled, right? And the problem is we discovered they aren't recycling anything. It was a lie. And we were paying them to do it. They weren't actually recycling our plastics and our cardboard. And that's a problem. And it's like this whole thing with Disney. They fired Gina Carano over a tweet, right? And we don't necessarily need to get into that. But the thing is, at the same time, Mulan, which was their big debut on Disney Plus this last year, was filmed in China. And at the end of it, because of where they were filming, they actually thanked the Xi'an province, which is the province in the military arm that is actually running the Uyghur Muslim concentration camps, where the great, and I'm not going to go into the details, where the greatest human rights abuses of the 21st century are occurring. And Disney's like, thanks, guys who are running concentration camps. The problem is we have a bunch of people who don't understand how the world works, and they think that somehow all Americans can sit at a typewriter like I'm 55, can sit at a computer all day and just type everything out and everyone's happy. Like not everyone can sit at a computer and complain about something they saw on television and make a career out of it. There actually have to be people who produce food. There actually has to be people who weld, who fix cars, who manufacture cars. Not everyone this whole will learn to code. That is the most BS crap I've ever seen in my life. And that is all right. I'm done with that rant. It bothers me because essentially we're like, we're good. We don't have slaves here, but we're perfectly happy to use slaves overseas. And everyone is perfectly happy to not care about the fact that Nike they're real happy to talk about their social stuff here in the US, but they're gonna pay $5 for a pair of shoes made by a child in a concentration camp, and they're gonna complain about stuff here. It's obscene. And the problem goes, a lot of the stuff could be fixed if we actually used our power, the power of our purse. We brought the jobs back here. We produced the materials and said, look, you want to do trade with us? Fine. Fix your human rights abuses. There's a basic level of things where, we don't necessarily have to tell people how to run their lives, but at the same time, it's like, if they want our money, it shouldn't be because some kid was kidnapped by the government and thrown into a concentration camp to produce sneakers. That's obscene, and we can say no to that. We have the power to say no to that. But instead, our government's like, what's really a great idea? Let's just make it harder for people to actually have life skills here in this country. We'll tell them to learn how to type on computers and all the stuff that need to be made. We'll just ship it over to be made by some child who in another country because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it? It's going on everywhere as well.
Yeah.
We've stopped doing things just so we can import this cheaper stuff. And what do we do? We're all responsible. Supply and demand. If we just stopped buying this stuff, we started doing our own thing. Why can't we do that? Why are we not doing that? I mean, there is obviously people that are doing that, but we need more of that, don't we? We need more of that.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is this is sort of the real problem, and it's honestly something I've been trying to wrestle with for a couple of weeks now. I've really started to think about this, like, where do we draw the lines? How do we draw lines? How do we make real change? Because I think the problem is we're so used to. Well, I mean, the problem is there's no one. This is a multi-sliced pie here, and we all like pie. So let me start with slice one. We got the fact that all of the media is basically controlled by 3 or 4 companies. Period. End of story. You've got Google, you've got Facebook, which actually controls more than you think. You've got Apple, you've got Disney, a handful of others. But really, just between 3 or 4 of those, all of the communications in the world, all the information is controlled and housed through those people. They control what people see and hear, literally like the outer limits, right? They determine the truth. And so the other problem is we don't have, there isn't a simple solution to any of these problems. And we don't have someone saying, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, this will fix this problem. We don't have someone standing up and saying that, because the problem is that there isn't an easy fix to this. And we all have to be willing to sacrifice. The problem is people don't really want to sacrifice, or they're willing to sacrifice if they can see that would actually mean something. The problem is it's hard to convince people that any sacrifice would mean anything, right? And so it's just, I don't know. I wish there was an easy fix to this. The problem is we need some moral certainty, we need some moral strength, and the other problem is, at what point, like, where do we, the problem, so here's the problem. You come out and you say this, you become you're labeled as some radical isolationist, right? Something that I'm going to try and word this very carefully so that we don't get flagged on YouTube. Cass Sunstein wrote years ago an academic paper. He's even said that he didn't write it, but he did. People who don't know who Cass Sunstein is, he was in the Obama administration. One of the things he wrote is that they talked about, in this paper, he talked about disinformation as a way to discredit certain groups. He didn't say CIA or anything specifically, but rather theoretically would be individuals infiltrating certain groups of, thought groups and cultural groups. And express ideas like you came from that group, but then you express radical views, and then on the other side, your news media focuses on these false radical claims to discredit the entire group or the entire set of questions, right? For example, the Bigfoot, right? It's always the most radical, most whacked out people who make it onto the news, right? It's Bigfoot came and kidnapped my baby and pimp slapped me and said his name was George. And then he flew and he turned into a giant butterfly and flew away with my baby. That's right here on my porch. Like, those are the people that get on the news, right? Those are the people everyone talks about. They're not talking about the guy who's like, yeah, I was here. This thing crossed in front of my car. They don't make the news. It's always the people who are the most insane. It's the same way for all. You see these, they talk about fringe groups. Well, the fringe groups, they focus on the people who are the most fringe, but a lot of these people may actually be plants. So you stand up, you say, hey, we have XYZ going on in China. We don't think this should be happening. We need to do XYZ. The next thing you know, they're going to find the weirdest, wackiest person who agrees with you, who's like, I agree, we shouldn't have anything from China, and we should blow them all to hell. And you're like, well, great. Now, but the news media is going to focus on that guy and not the rest of the conversation. So no real conversation happens. So it's not just the fact that we don't have anyone standing up having the conversation. The problem is when you try to have the conversation, if it does get out, the news media is going to find the craziest person in the world, even if it's a plant, right, to discredit you, so that no one has that conversation anymore. I mean, okay, so if you want to get into conspiracy theories, this is the only conspiracy theory I really believe in. I think that the vast majority of conspiracy theories, right, are built up by the CIA or other individuals. But what they do is they take the core truth and they just make the more outlandish claims, so that the people who are like, hey, this is wrong, they get off going on this weird tangent because of all they put just enough weird stuff out there that everyone goes and follows that. And so it discredits the whole movement. I go back to Pizzagate. It's the greatest example of this. What is the core truth of Pizzagate is that there was a group of, or a powerful cabal of people who were politically and financially connected, who were supplying underage prostitutes as sex slaves to wealthy and politically entrenched and powerful people. That's the core of it. All the rest of it was blown up and made so strange that it sort of got dismissed. But it's like, well, then what do you think Epstein was? Epstein was Pizzagate. That's what it was. That's who he was, at least one aspect of this thing. But the problem is the whole thing got blown out of, they use everyone focuses on the disinformation because it's sexier, right? I mean, that's probably the wrong term, but it's more interesting. We want the cloak and dagger stuff. We don't want the real stuff, so we can punish people. Has anyone who flew to Epstein's Island been handcuffed and perp walked? Have they? No, they haven't. How long is this going to take? We have the island, we got the tapes, we have all of it, and no one's going anywhere. And what did Biden just do? He actually shut down a program that was actually going after child molesters and child sex traffickers, and he shut it down. And everyone's like, "Yeah, it seems legit." So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think more is going to come out soon with Maxwell on trial at the moment, or coming up to be on trial soon. Mm-hmm. And some names have been redacted, but they're out. They are there. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Another way to do this is like completely ignore the news, the media, everything, like I do, and I just do my bit. So if that's buying local food, local products, just not buying into it and putting my bit. I mean, it's little things, but if everybody does a little bit, that
absolutely. I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. But people have been fighting this for years. It's not just like a new concept. I mean, when I was a kid, there was still this going on, exactly the same situation. There was still slave labor going on, kids in China and other places being used. This is just, I mean, we've no idea really just how bad the way this world runs. But I believe if you do your bit, then that's something.
And I agree. I think that's all something we can do is try and buy more local things. Find your local farmers when you go out. Yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more, but at the end of the day, wouldn't you rather have a clean conscience?
Mm.
We got to start putting our money where our mouth is. And yeah, guess what? Maybe it's going to maybe it will cost you a little bit more money. Maybe you don't, maybe that's the sacrifice, right? Is being willing to do with a little bit less. Maybe it's not as comfortable. I'm sorry, but one of the poorest people, if you're in the West, if you're poor in the West, you have a higher standard of living than most of anyone in the history of mankind. Straight up, you just do. Even the poorest people today have better medical care than the wealthiest people 50 and 60 years ago. The problem is we're so comfortable, we're not willing to become uncomfortable let me phrase this. I think most people would be willing to become uncomfortable if they thought that it would actually mean something. And that's the problem, is we have to convince people it would mean something. But yeah, buy local, find your neighbors. There's things we can do, but we got to find better ways of doing it. Max had a comment about how, it's just like, this is an American problem with like opinions on news. Let me help you out here, right? It's not that. It's also what news gets shown. This is not an American problem. This is
over
all
here as well.
It's everywhere, because it's not just about whether or not something's an opinion or not. It's about what facts get shown. Early on, I forget who it was. I just forgot her name, but she got into some people when Trump had first gotten elected. She talked about alternative facts, and they're like, "There's no such thing as alternative facts." Yeah, there are. It's the facts that you're not talking about. That's what makes them alternative. Is that you're not addressing them, and that's the problem. Is that it's not in the modern day, we don't lie by omission. Let me phrase this. We don't lie by misquoting somebody. We lie by omitting context or omitting information entirely. That's how we lie this day in the modern world. And what we just, and usually, I don't care what country you're in, there's all kinds of stuff that people don't report on. They just don't talk about it. And that's a problem. But again, this is not a new problem. I mean, you can find quotes from Thomas Jefferson and Mark Twain talking about this, right? There's, the same sentiment basically was shared by both, which was you can either not read the newspaper and be uninformed, or you can read the newspaper and be ill-informed, right? It's a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation, because that's just how it's gone. The controlling the flow of information and trying to pervert truth for your own ends, that's a very human thing. That's what we've always done. So, I mean, I think the problem with all this is there are solutions, but the real power is in the control and flow of information, which we just don't have anymore. And here's the problem. People have even dropped the pretense of fact and truth, right? Because everyone's just going to say, well, that came from Fox, or that came from CNN, or that's this person, or that's this person, and they just reject it out of hand. So no actual conversation can occur. And that's our problem. There's no one who can actually, who everyone can trust. And there's no one actually saying this is how we fix these problems. In fact, if you address them as problems, you're seen as crazy anyway.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't focus on anything that's in the news or the newspapers.
Yeah.
Not that I'm ignorant. I mean, I know there's stuff going on, but I don't pay any energy to it, because actually nothing affects me. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but a lot of the stuff that's been talked about, I can't do anything, can't actually do anything about that. We're just, witnesses. We're just the crowd witnessing this stuff that's going on, and we'll never.
Yes.
And so I kind of think, with a lot of things, it's like, this is your life. We're here once in this lifetime, whatever your beliefs are, but you are here once, and you could really make your life whatever you want it to be.
Yes.
And if you'd cut off for a little bit from all the stuff that's going on out there that doesn't affect your life, you might see that there's more going on around you than you think. And talking to people around you, because this is the other thing we don't communicate very well anymore. If I didn't have a dog, I wouldn't speak to half the people that I speak to, because it just happens when I'm out. You bump into another dog walker and suddenly you're having a conversation about whatever. I mean, where do we get to see what other people think? It's all right being amongst your friends, but your friends are kind of maybe your way of thinking, or you're kind of in the same bubble. But it's really good to meet different people, to see, to learn a little bit more about life than reading your newspaper.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, and again, what do? We focus on these national news medias, right? And what are they doing? They're taking the worst stuff out of here. It's all 50 states. Over there, it's all of Britain, and probably even Europe, right? So instead of it being what's actually affecting your day, in your life, in your community, in your city, in your county, whatever, it's something that's happened 1,000 miles away in a community that you don't even know, with people you've never met. And that's supposed to be what you care about. And I think that's really the big problem, is instead of, we're so focused on these other things and we're trying to find a solution for everybody. What we should be doing is focusing on our local community, on our local news, and finding solutions for our community. But the problem is we've all, whether you're in the UK or other places in the world, or even the US, we've all pushed all this power into these large centralized governments. And so the problem is Joe Biden or Donald Trump wakes up one day and says, I want XYZ, and everyone's got to do it. Right? Well, great. Now you've got, if you're here, there's 320 million people. Now all have to do the same thing. That's an insane proposition. We got to pull the power back from these centralized governments and bring it back to Daniela. You have a township squire. What is it in Britain?
A mayor.
You've got a mayor, but I mean, do you have a town? Is it a city? Are you in a county?
I'm in a county. I'm in a city. Yeah, within a county. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Same thing here. I thought y'all had the same breakdown we did. So it's like the power should be where the people are, so that we can fix our own problems. And with people like a mayor, I can go walk up to my mayor and talk to him. Right. Yeah. That's how you fix problems. I can go, but I can't walk up to the president of the United States, particularly right now, because they're walled off, like they're in a green zone in Iraq. But it's like, that's what we got to do. We got to bring everyone back into we got to bring the power back to the people, where the local governments can actually solve problems.
We have local councillors for our towns as well. Mm-hmm. My dog's trying to dig a hole in this silly got going on.
I was watching it. Yeah.
It's just to get this thing in the right place. The thing, I can't even say the word. Can't even think of the word. Anyway, yeah, we have local councillors, and I guess they all want you to vote for them. Oh, here we go. This is the digging thing now.
They all do it. Mine does it all the time.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Speaking of, where is she?
And I don't know. Pretty useless, I think. They're all tied by the same. Stop it, dog. They're all just, for me, they're all just puppets out there. They're just, if he's not there, it's going to be another councillor. They're just tied by the same rules. There's certain things they can do, but they must know 95% of their work just involves representing a party rather than actually doing much. I don't know. We're restricted by money. Money is the thing, and yeah, we have a council, but everything's budgeted. Everything we rely on donations from the lottery, from the EU. Well, not anymore now because we've gone into Brexit, so we're probably not going to get half the things that we were getting done around our town. We just simply can't raise enough money on our own to do the things we want. It's a mess, but I don't know where I'm going with this. But I don't know if I said this before, but when it was everybody complains, about not having enough money and not things aren't getting done. But when it came to like the World Cup, literally every house in Lancaster had a British, an England flag from the window or from the car or whatever, just a little plastic thing. Even if it cost £1, like if everybody just put £1 into a jar, into our pot once a week, and just say, I don't know how many people we've got here, but there's thousands. We could literally turn this city around week by week with that money ourselves in our city. Why aren't we doing that?
I think that goes back to,
I know you're saying trust, who keeps the money, but I mean, if you could sort that out and there was enough people to be accountable for it, you could really make a difference in your town.
Well, so there you go. You answered your own question. It's trust. It's someone calling everyone to it, but then it's also actually being in your community. Like I have lived in this house for 7 years now, in where I live, about 30 minutes outside of Dallas. 25 minutes, depending on how you drive. I stopped. I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, we really don't have a lot of ties here. Like all of my friends, like everyone I know, with the exception of a handful of people, they are still in DeSoto, where I grew up, or in Duncanville, or they're on some other place. Like so many of our ties are still where we were, and not here. Well, part of that is the fact that up until this past year, I have literally had to drive to Plano or to Irving, which means nothing to you, which is fine. I'm just saying, I 45 minutes in one direction to go to work. I never had a chance to set up roots here, even though we've lived here for so long. And a lot of our stuff was still, because we were homeschooling, our co-op was in DeSoto. So it's like, we didn't really have ties here. And I'm like, we need to change that and actually start having ties in this community. And the problem is, for so many of us, we live here, but we work someplace else. And then when it's time to finally go relax, it's like, well, we're going someplace else. So we never really get to know our neighbors. We never really get to know the community. And beyond that, how many people can you possibly know? Again, I live in a small, it's not technically a suburb, but it's basically a suburb kind of a thing. But I'm like, but we got 45, 50,000 people now. I can't know all those people. I mean, how many people in my neighborhood can I possibly know? I can't know all those people. And my little neighborhood has tripled or quadrupled in size since we moved in. It's like, the problem is, everything's gotten so big. We live such insular lives. It's hard to make those connections, right? I mean, it's really hard. And maybe, hold on, play with me here on this. Let's bounce this idea back and forth. Maybe that's sort of the problem. What we need, and I've seen some Facebook pages that are sort of like this, where it's like, here's this, people talking about things going on in this community, right? Maybe what we need is some way of having, where, like, again, sort of like the local bulletin board, where everyone can meet and talk to each other digitally, right? So there can be sort of a, hey, this is it, this is going on. Maybe that's what we need. Is some way to help bring and allow that communication, and make certain that you can only be in that board if you actually live in that community, right? If you live within this zip code, or these zip codes or whatever, then you can talk to people here, because and there's the information. Here's, you can have news as a way of bringing people together and have those conversations. But the problem is, when you have 50,000 people living in a small area, it's, we're kind of spread out, but still, that's 50,000 people. I agree with you. $1 a week from everyone who lives in the town, we could probably raise all kinds of cash to do all kinds of things in the community. But the problem is, people have to be able to trust the people, and they got to know what's happening. How you could probably do something like that, and no one would ever hear about it, right? So maybe what we need to look, or needs to be done, is find a way to create a system where people can actually log on, and instead of talking and seeing what news is going on around the country, they can find out what's going on. I mean, I just reinvented local newspapers, I think, but something where it's more interactive, so we can actually communicate.
Yeah. I mean, we have a local on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Lancaster Past and Present. I think there's 60,000 people in that. Some people don't live in Lancaster, but Lancaster's got a big university,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people that come I mean, we have a lot of overseas students as well,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a thing about Lancaster. A lot of people tend to come and study here and stay here, or if they don't, they go and then they come back. So there's lots of connections, but just through that, we could, you know, like you say, there's a board that goes, we can build a community centre next week for this amount, and we just need £1 off, you know, say you need 50,000 people. I think it could be done. I think this could be done if we just thought about it. If people could improve your town, and you can just do it in one area at a time. Start small, rather than let's build the Taj Mahal. Little simple things to start with to gain trust, to show that with a little bit of cash you can do this, and build on it from there. I think this could be something that could really happen.
Well, I think all we've done is we've rediscovered old school activism and what things were like before the internet. The problem is, I think we got to find a way to convince people to kind of return to, again, old school values, right? I mean, people used to have these values and these beliefs, and so you didn't have to. We just got to figure out a way to do that, to have people. I think the problem is it's so much easier to fall in and be concerned with the big things, right? That's national, because to a point it doesn't really require you to sacrifice anything. I mean, honestly, something I'm thinking about, and as soon as I think about it, the more I realize, but you've written an awful lot on things like Bigfoot and UFOs. Are you sure this is a great idea? Is looking to see what, running for something here locally, actually getting involved, finding out what's there. I think I need to be more behind the scenes. But I think everyone here could look and find something in their city, their county, and find all kinds of things. You can go and run and be unopposed. Right? There's all kinds of local groups. We can do this even with COVID. And I'm gonna be honest, particularly where I live and a bunch of other places, there's a lot of people who are like, screw COVID, we're just gonna go do it anyway. Right? We got the vaccines coming out, and we got all that coming out, so let's just go do this. Let's start living life again. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, is there's so many of these positions that you can run completely unopposed. Now, maybe you won't make a lot of money doing it, but maybe it's a volunteer thing, right? Maybe that's what you got to do, is you got to volunteer for a local thing. You're not going to make money doing it. That's a problem. That can be a disruption for some people, but sometimes you can make money doing it, and that's fine. Go do the job, get involved. I think the problem is we've abdicated our own personal responsibility in this. And that's where, and so that's the thing, is once we start to fix our own neighborhoods, our own stuff, we can also get in power and make certain the people who then go to those next rungs up are the people who need to be going to the next rung up, right? I think that's the problem, is we've allowed the corruption. The corruption is all the way through. So you got to go back to the roots. Well, grassroots is what? The local politics. So we fix the grassroots, we fix all of it, because the grassroots is where everyone's coming from. I mean, somebody can say, hey, this dude is being put up by money from people from another country or another county or someone who's got nothing to do with us. Let's not run this guy, right? Let's run this guy. And then you go and you talk to your neighbors. And you're like, hey, these are the people we need to talk to. These are the people we need to get out to. This is this kind of stuff that we need. But it's going to come down to actually having conversations with people. And I know it sounds like we've been so far afield today, but I don't think that there is. I think there's a much bigger connection, whether you're talking about corruption on any and every level with local life. It's like, why is it China can get away with doing all this stuff? Is because we aren't putting pressure on them politically or financially. And we're certainly not doing it anymore. I mean, at least, say what you want about Trump, at least he tried. Biden just got bought by them straight up. I mean, he's like, yes, China, whatever you want. And so because all China wants is money. They've been infiltrating us. People have been talking about this for years. China is just doing 5th generational warfare with us now, where they're just buying politicians. So the problem is the only reason they can get away with that is because we have allowed corruption here, because we don't care about our own local government. Because it's the local government where you get your state senators and your state congressmen, if depending on that's how you all run your stuff in that state, and then that's where and then those are the people who choose all the other people. Like, that's the problem. We're not actually engaged in the grassroots, because of the grassroots that's really where the power is. We've just allowed the large centralized groups to take control. But if let's say I live here in the state of Texas, we're starting to pull more of our power back and say, hold on, you don't get to do that. And a lot of states, I think they should. We need to reclaim that power, bring it back to the people. But that also means we got to get in and make certain that we can root out the corruption from the ground, from the roots up. And then we can start fixing these things, right? We can start applying power, saying, yeah, you know what, China, you're great. We love the stuff that you can do, but we don't like XYZ. So you get this cleaned up, or we won't trade with you. We got to be willing to make that sacrifice. We got to be willing and bring all that back. But most of us don't want that.
No, and it's out of our hands, isn't it? It's so far from us as well. We don't have, although we are the government, we're supposed to be the government, and these people are just acting on our behalf. It doesn't work like that, or it doesn't seem to work like that. And this is why I feel, and something else that you just said about, we're just too, lazy, or we're not interested, but it's that thing when you start paying into a system, you start forgetting what you need to do. You've paid your books or your quids, whatever. They're going to take control of it, and you give them the power then, but actually they haven't got the power. You're giving them that power. You don't need to. They don't need that. You don't have to do that. And we create our own prisons in our. We think we're trapped, but it's just in our heads, really. That actually,
absolutely,
we've got more control. You have more control of your life than you can ever imagine, and it's having the balls to realize that, or to see that. And think, I don't want to put up with this. I don't want to be part of this. It's a big battle to fight, but on your own, you can still do your thing. You can still make a difference to your life as well, because this is the important thing: is it's got to be worth it for you to be here, and you can really make your own story, your own life story. With your own choices, rather than thinking that you're trapped and this is the way things have to be. This isn't the way things should be at all. Why we're still here after all these years, having to tolerate the crap and the way people are being treated, and we're by not doing anything, we're enabling it. By not doing it. And I'm not saying you have to go out and stand in front of tanks and stuff like that, but do just step back from whatever you think you're engaging in, and don't do it anymore. Just go and buy some local veg tomorrow. Just do one thing that you think, I'm doing something for someone locally, for my town, for my bit, and that's what I try and do as much as I can, because I don't want to buy beans from Kenya. I'm happy to eat seasonal veg. I don't have to get stuff imported from all these countries when we've got people that are growing stuff here. And if we just adapt to our environments a little bit more than all this, we can get absolutely any veg or fruit. I'm not interested in eating a passion fruit that's come from Australia, although it's nice, but really, these are just like luxuries. They're kind of luxury.
They are luxuries. And let me push back on that just a tiny bit. I think there are things that we should definitely buy locally. But at the same time, as long as what's coming to us has been, and I think this is the big question mark, right? If it has been fairly harvested, fairly grown, then think there is an advantage to being able to help some of these poorer nations, right? Like, I'm okay with that. My question is, was it harvested from a child slave, though? And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of this comes back to. Is the problem is we need to be able to say, well, what has it been ethically sourced? Are these? Yeah,
Absolutely, I agree with that. We should buy fair trade stuff.
yeah, exactly. No, that's it. Yeah, so I have no problem with international trade per se, but what I'm saying is we need to bring a lot of this stuff back home, so that we can actually so we're not limited to buying stuff from child slaves and being okay with it. I think the problem is really trying hard not to say anything that's going to get you canceled here. I think if we were to actually look real hard at where money goes, right? I think we would realize we're all being stolen from. I'm saying that very carefully. I think that's the real problem. Is a lot of these nations do have the ability to produce real, enough money for everyone. The problem is we're devaluing our money, and it's going to people who, and being concentrated artificially by groups that do not have our best intent at heart. There we go. That can't get you into trouble.
There you go.
Really had to work my way around that one. Sorry.
You did.
Well, I know the AI is working, so it's like I know they're listening. Still, you're like, I can't around
that. Sorry, I just saw. Got into like. Why don't I like you? What happened the last time we met? Did you stand on my toes or something? I don't know what I've done, but I don't think I like you anymore. I do. I think I do. Yeah. Life's a roller coaster, and you've just got to ride it, apparently. Or you don't have to. You can get off and you can do your own thing, and things will be a bit more interesting, I think, than just following the. I always say, only dead fish go with the flow.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense because most fish, I think, just go with the flow, don't they? Anyway, whether they're dead or not.
I think it depends on the fish.
Then other salmon go the opposite way, don't they? And try and jump up rocks and all sorts to get up to. I don't know where I was going with that. Probably food.
Probably the food. Larry M, I don't think there's actually a difference between the two. I'll just say that. Well, don't put it up. Don't put it up. We're trying to trick the AI here. We're trying to distract the AI.
Like playing a game of chicken, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Don't really. I need a 45 ACP. I don't know what that is. What's an ACP?
It's a bullet round, or it's a classification. It's a 45 caliber, but the ACP is for automatic. It was honestly developed over 100 years ago, but it's really effective. I'm a 44 mag guy myself.
I'm just not a gun girl at all. Obviously, I've never even held one.
Really? Actually, never mind. You're British. I get it.
It's not. I'm British. It's not because I'm British.
Yeah, it
I'm
is.
not British, am I? How can I be British with foreign parents?
Where do you live? Where did you grow up?
What does that mean? If my parents are Italian and Polish, and I'm born in England, does that make me British?
Are you not a subject of the British Crown?
I don't have any British in me.
So many jokes on that.
Okay, right.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody got any questions?
That's what I thought.
Any questions? But do you know what I'm saying?
No, I get what
listen, if you were born in India, your parents were in India, and you were born, would you be Indian?
Well, okay, so that's a great question, and I would say this. I think there's a problem, or there's a discrepancy here, because I would not be ethnically Indian, but I would be if I was a citizen of India, I would still be Indian. If I was raised in India, I'd still be Indian. You are a subject of the British Crown. You've lived your entire life in England. You're British.
Can I just say, I have dual nationality,
Okay.
so I can vote in Italy and I can vote in England.
Well, there you go.
Does that mean anything?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, you're still British. I mean, my wife has dual citizenship with Colombia. She's still an American. I'm working on the Texan thing, but I think I've worn her down a little bit. She started saying y'all. She's in the other room.
Suzanne says my kids were born in Hawaii, not Hawaiian.
Right, but so again, that depends on what you mean by Hawaiian.
Oh, okay.
Love you, honey. Because Hawaii is a state, it's an American, so they'd be American because Hawaii is just a state. But Hawaii was also its own nation. So that's
European. I think I'm just European. That's
all right. That works too.
That works. Yeah, I think I'm a bit more European.
Okay, I think that's fair enough, but that still means that's why you haven't handled a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Just don't have them here. But
you have them there. They're just not in the hands of the people. They're in the hands of the government.
Yeah. Farmers can have them, but really, I would have no reason to have a gun or think I need one. People are still talking about bullets for some reason. The squad is busy doing something. In a world war, what country would you back? I think that's a little bit deep, is it, for tonight? Maybe we'll cover that next week.
I guess the question is, what's the world war over? I mean, who's on what side? I mean, it's like let's define some parameters on this one.
Gary I'm Crow-Indian bloodline by my great grandfather, as I was told. So what does that make you then? Yeah. It's one of those, isn't it? What have you got in you and what you haven't got in you?
Well, but it goes beyond what you. I would even argue this is a bigger thing because it goes beyond what you have in you to the culture you were raised in, right? Well, I'm almost full. I mean, I'm almost full-blood Scot, but I would never say I'm Scottish. I don't know what it's like to grow up in Scotland. I don't know much about Scotland. I'm a Texan. I grew up in Texas. I'm an American. I know what it's like to be an American who comes from Texas. That's the culture I was raised in. You were raised in the UK. You lived.
But I lived eating pasta and sauerkraut.
Well, so have a lot of people. I hate sauerkraut.
Not English. Not the English people. You know, my friends at school were eating pie and mash, sausage and mash and chips with ketchup and mayonnaise all over it. I was eating lasagnas and stuffed cabbage leaves and pizza. You know, I grew up. My dad is like, he's still a talker like this. You know, even though he's in England, he's still very, very Sicilian. My mom was still had a lot of Polish kind of.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, stuff in her. So I never quite thought I grew up. It's weird. I don't feel like a typical English because I've had.
Well, you're probably not typically English.
No,
but that doesn't make you not English, right? So I think this is the thing. There's always subcultures. Which is why I'm a big individualist. I don't like putting people into these large groups, right? Because the problem is you remove the individuality. But the simple fact of the matter is, yes, you had a different experience, but you're still part of that experience. You're still part of the British experience. You just have a different. Maybe you're not the majority, but you're still British. You still have a British experience. It's just different. And that's the thing. A lot of people have different experiences in the culture that they come from, but they still come from that culture, right? I would argue culture is a much bigger aspect of who you are than bloodlines or race or even education. It's the culture in which you grew up in. But the thing is, cultures are not monolithic. No culture is. A culture is a compilation of many different thoughts, ideas, experiences, classes, religions coming together. Yours is just a very specific track, but you're still British, right? You speak the Queen's English. You drive on the wrong side of the road. You've not handled a gun. You're still British. I mean, let's be honest here.
Call eggplant aubergine. I mean,
yeah, you call eggplants aubergine. And Oreos. Don't get me started on Oreos.
Oh, Oreos.
Yes.
What happened to them?
You call them chocolate biscuits.
They are biscuits.
No, they're cookies. Damn it! No, they are cookies. No. In your UK. No, they're Oreos. Absolutely no. That's what I'm saying.
Let's talk about this next week then.
Okay.
If the ingredients are all English, they are definitely English. But
so there you go.
The English ingredients.
All your muffins are English muffins.
They are. They should be, unless they're American ones, and then they're not. Are they? So, chicken cacciatore, I love that.
Well, who doesn't?
Yeah, and hi, Vincent. It's good to see you here tonight. We have come up to the end of the hour. Biscuits and gravy just don't make sense because Oreos are biscuits, and you would never have Oreos with beef stew and gravy. It just doesn't make sense. But you Americans, it just make me laugh. But look,
biscuits aren't. We call them cookies. You call them biscuits, and you're wrong. That's fine. That's why we left. Very politely.
You can't have shortbread cookies. Cookies are cookies, and shortbread is biscuit. I just, it's going to take us ages, isn't it, to get you lot thinking and into the right kind of verbiage and, pronunciation of these things. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Guys, thank you very much for being here tonight. I've had an interesting night listening to all this opinions of the world and what can we do? How can we make it a better place? It's just by doing our little bit. And if you think something's wrong, don't do it anymore. Don't just go with the flow. You can make a difference in your life, in your neighbour's life, and your town's life. And, we can't conquer the world. We can't do all that, but we can, in our own ways, do our little bit. Thank you, Jason.
No, thank you for having me on. As always, it's lovely. Yeah. Even though you call cookies biscuits, we can still love each other.
I'm not going to fall out with you just because of that. I mean, there's many things I could fall out with you about.
Right. I mean, there's plenty of really important things to fall out over.
It will never be biscuits and cookies.
No, it will not.
But next week, I'm going to get some biscuits and cookies here, and we'll debate this.
Let's do that. Yes.
Sort this out once and for all. Until the next time, folks, you have a good night and have a good week, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.